I can start. Yeah, when it comes to self-preservation, for me, it's been as simple as removing myself from the situation that I know is going to be volatile. Like I think that that's as simple as it as you can say it. That doesn't mean, I spoke earlier about not wanting to cut people out of my life, but there are certain situations where I know I can have a discourse with the individual who might not necessarily see things in the same light, but if you put that individual in a certain situation, it's gonna take a sour turn very, very quickly. So I think just knowing and trusting yourself on where you feel safe, I I've found there's a couple of specific scenarios I can think of that I just needed to just kind of walk away from, just knowing that it wasn't healthy for me or probably for anyone in that room to be dropped into that situation. My my hope is, to continue to find more resources to, reach out, and break down those barriers. But sometimes the simplest thing is to just not put yourself in that situation. I hopefully I can learn something from the rest of this group that maybe is a little bit more complex than my ability to just not walk through that door.
I don't know if what I have to say is like more complex, but I think one of like the simple things that I've tried with like holidays is finding like that person, whether it's like a sibling, a cousin, an aunt, whomever, a friend, who can kind of like be like your safe haven, and thinking about like what is like the safe word that like either of you like say or call each other, that may be like not known to like others, whether it's like, oh, let's go check on the rabbits or something. I don't know why that just came to mind. Rabbit could be the word or whatever. But it's just a time of like, okay, person, like let's like go take a breath. Like this is like too much for me, because I do think that like walking away, but if helpful, still having like the community of like whomever that person could be is like so important. And I think it's also, I try to make sure that I keep up with like my practices. Like most of my family is like not in the Boston area, so I like travel, and like meditation is something that's important to me. Obviously, like running and fitness is important to me, so I try to make sure that I can keep up with like my practices, particularly at the start of the day, if I'm like staying over or something like that, to like find space to feel grounded ahead of it. So I would just say, encourage people to like try to carve that out as possible, and try to find that person, that community or whatever, and have your thing, so that you can lean on it if it gets to be too hard.
Yeah, Glendean, you're right on the, having a person or having a mechanism. I think one of the things that just came to mind that I probably blocked out of my memory was during one of those contentious conversations where, being that this is the Running Industry Diversity Coalition, like thinking about going outside and getting a breath, if it's running, if it's walking, going for a walk with someone, I think that that's been one of those just little simple mechanisms that, it's like it in the moment you're not thinking that, but it's like it's so simple that to just get outside and just clear the air, like literally clear the air a little bit has been and maybe with that safe person that you're gonna go check on the rabbits with. So yeah, I completely agree that just like, if I started out by saying kind of like being in that situation, like not walking through the door, but if you find yourself in that door and you need that self-preservation, your suggestion on having that person who's kind of your support, but then also the ability to just have have the emotional intelligence to just remove yourself from the situation and go and take a walk. If that means take a walk and not coming back, that could mean that, but or coming back, because sometimes we're talking about these situations that might continue to be escalated, and can we be the bigger person? Can we have the person be the person who has enough just foresight to know that this isn't going to be I win, they lose sort of situation, and we can maybe de-escalate.
Thank you, Jeff and Glendean. I would share that how I would kind of go into this is kind of weighing my relationships with the individual and the impact that they have on my life and how valuable they are to me, and therefore the amount of effort that I'm going to invest in the conversation. And there are relationships where I'm willing to make sacrifices, where maybe I don't need to fully invest myself into it, and I can remove myself from the conversation more easily and it doesn't impact me as much. But then there are other relationships where they're more meaningful to me. And I think it's also important to realize those toxic relationships early on, meaning the people that are affecting your mental health in a way where you realize that it's not healthy for you. And I think it's good to understand that they're having that effect on you, so that you can make sure you create those boundaries for yourself. But I think of course I value everyone, but at the same time, I do within my relationships, there are different levels in terms of the priorities that I have in my life at this time, and the energy that I want to provide. So therefore, that's my way of kind of working through that and kind of navigating through different conversations. But in terms of other resources, I think is, making sure you either take a walk or a run and giving yourself that space to recollect your thoughts, and then reconvene when you're ready. But I think the RIDC will be providing more resources that goes along with these videos, so I can also include some links that we can share as well afterwards.
Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, the issue of self-protection and safety is very important when we think about especially marginalized identities, identities that are not very well known, that we don't know about. And so I myself, yes, I avoid conversations. I avoid getting worked up on some things. I might decide not to go protest in front of the police. I might decide not to make myself vulnerable when I go back to my country and I have to go through TSA or the Border Patrol, because really law enforcement is not a safe place for me. I feel like they see me as the enemy immediately. However, I also acknowledge that I have a dominating identity. I am a man in a world where the patriarchy is dominating. And so I also want to make myself uncomfortable and unsafe in order to show empathy to people who might be willing to have those conversations. I might become an ally and just stand next to a person who is having an uncomfortable conversation just to make them feel my support and not show that I'm going to walk out because I'm uncomfortable. Sometimes my level of discomfort needs to be measured with the level of discomfort or loss or grief of somebody else, and I want to be there for them. So many times can be for self-protection, but many times can be for allyship. Many times can be for support of others. And so it is, you can decide what you do, but it's not always recommended, especially in a dominating identity. And if you are in a position of power, that you just walk away and don't want to hear that conversation because you still left a person there, possibly left a conversation there. And actually you showing up as an ally not only shows the person you are supporting that you are there, it shows the person they are having the conversation that you are there. So it's a matter of understanding this reciprocity and connection between those topics, our identities, and how we support each other. And I will say another thing that I've heard in this country, a lot of people don't want to be uncomfortable by seeing color. I hear a lot of people who say, I was taught to not see color. Everybody is the same. And when you don't see color, you are avoiding precisely to be discomfort. You are avoiding, you are consciously, willingly avoiding to acknowledge that there are other people that don't have your privilege, and that there are other people who don't have the advantages and the privileges that you have. That goes for heterosexual males, that goes for white people, that goes for a lot of people. So we need to understand that if we don't acknowledge these differences, then we will be incapable of seeing what is oppression to them, what is disrespect to them, what is things that bother other people. So I think sometimes we need to get a little uncomfortable just to show up that learning comes from discomfort. Very little learning comes from not being uncomfortable. So I would also say, remember that the conversation you're having right now might not be solved, but it helps you prepare for the next time you have this conversation. So be brave and have this conversation, because you will be prepared for the next one. And the other thing to know is that it doesn't matter if you talk for an hour, for a week, or for a year, time will never be enough. So keep having those conversations in order to feed yourself and others of the opinions and the experiences that you might want to share.